This is Tanaka Rani Shindomu representing Golden Cloud Network, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that is relevant to all of us. We're talking about how pensions work. Okay, so this is more specifically relevant to the working people. If you're formally employed, good for you. This affects you. And even if you're not formally employed, even if you're informally employed, even if you're a hustler in the streets, this also is relevant to you because it's not about pensions, or it's not about a fund. It's about the concept of pension funds. Okay, so let's get into that. So whenever you get paid, a percentage of your money gets deducted from your salary, and that money is sent to an organization that is meant to keep that money for you for future use. Okay, so you're giving this organization money as you're working, so that one day when you stop working, when you're retired, when you're too old and tired to work, that organization is supposed to give you a package, either a once-off package or a monthly package that will sustain you for the rest of your life until the day you say goodbye. So this is how pensions work. So pension funds are meant to be like a banking arrangement that keeps people's money for future use. Basically, some sort of a savings account, right? But money was not made to sit in a corner or in a bank, and just sit and just chill there. Money was made to be fruitful and multiply. So this is how pension funds do it. They take your money on a monthly basis and then they invest that money. That money will be invested in different kinds of things, right? So we're going to get deep into that today, on the types of things that pension funds invest in, right? And the risks that they face in doing that, and also the opportunities that may present themselves during the process. Okay, so pension funds take the money that they gather from different people and they mainly invest it in assets that have the potential and that are reliable and stable enough to generate more cash in the future, right? So we're not going to put our money into something that is not reliable or that is unstable, because we'll lose our money. And if we lose our money, we'll go to that organization and say, hey, I'm 70 years now. Where's my money? I'm 65. Where's my money? It'll be an ugly situation and that organization will not be trusted. So the organizations that are responsible for pension funds make sure that they invest in something that is stable and reliable. So it depends with the country. In Zimbabwe, it was identified that properties are the most stable and reliable asset to invest in, because no matter what, properties will always preserve their worth and their value. We're gonna get deeper into that in a second. Okay, so pension funds are like how parents operate. Parents take care of their children. They take their children to school. They provide for their children because, they're grown and they're working. They have the energy, they have the power, they have the skill, right? But one day they won't be able to perform as well as they used to perform. They'll get old, they'll get slower, and they'll get weaker. It's natural, it's natural. It's not personal, it's natural. And this happens to everyone, right? And when that happens, the children are supposed to step up and take care of their parents the way their parents took care of them at some point in time, right? So this is how pensions work, right? You put your money in a fund that is supposed to wait when you still can, when you're working, when you have employment, when you're strong, when you're energetic, you're working and you're putting your money in a fund so that one day when you're not able to work, one day when you lose your job because of old age, that money you've been paying on a monthly basis will be returned to you in the form of packages. Sometimes they're once-off packages, or sometimes they're regular packages, maybe on a monthly basis or so. So that's the concept behind pension funds, and most people know this. But today we're going to discuss more about how these pension funds, right, invest our money, right? So in a perfect world, pension funds would just invest in anything. But in this world is met with a lot of problems. We face a lot of problems, economic or financial problems such as hyperinflation, currency collapsing, companies bankrupting, so a lot of challenges are faced. So it is important and crucial to know, to make the right choice on which organization or which arrangement or which fund or which company or which asset rather you invest in. So this is what pension funds do. They identify the most stable and reliable asset. And like I said before, in this country, it was identified that property is the most stable asset that these pension funds invest in, right? So if an investment is not done well, if they make the wrong choice, right, this will negatively affect investments made by the pension funds, and people won't get packages that will satisfy them. So usually, right, the best asset is property. So when we're talking about property, we're talking about maybe commercial and residential properties. For example, pension funds can invest in real estate, like we're talking about flats, right? They may say, okay, right, we have this money, right? What are we supposed to do with this money? Okay, let's build flats over there. Why? Because no matter what, people will always need a roof under their heads. That's essential. We need food and we need a place to sleep, right? So okay, they'll build these residential flats, right? People are paying rent on a monthly basis, right? They're gonna cover the expenses that they incurred to build those apartments or those flats, and then they'll start to generate enough money to give back to the people that they took money from, right? So that's how it is, usually residential. So besides flats, these are residential properties. We can also invest in commercial properties. Okay, let's build a mall, right? Okay, different shops are gonna be at this mall. They're gonna be paying rent on a monthly basis. Let's get back this money that we used to build the malls. And building these structures is not easy. That's why pension funds are more like a long-term investment. You can't work for 2 years and then say, I want my pension, because it's a process, it's a long process. So it also makes sense to invest in properties, since properties take time, one, to construct, and they take time to generate like substantial amounts of profits that can cover everyone that participated in their construction, right? So in other countries, this is Zimbabwe, in other countries, there are other options, right? Because other countries may have more stable economies. They don't face hyperinflation. Their currency is more stable, right? So other countries may invest in equities. They may say, okay, there's this new company coming up. Okay, what is it called? It's called Econet. Okay, what does Econet do, right? Econet provides network services, right? Telecommunication network services. Okay, that sounds promising. Okay, because we're in the year 2000 and telecommunications is just uprising. Okay, let's put some money in that. Econet will still be small, but as it grows, it will start to become a big company and it will start to produce a lot of profits. And then, since they didn't get there to that level by themselves, they had investors. They'll have to return some of the money that was invested in them. And then the money that was invested to them by that pension fund in this context would then be returned, and that pension fund will be able to pay back the people that contributed to it. So it's sort of like it's a money game. It's a money game. And sometimes things go wrong and sometimes, things work out well. So in Zimbabwe, they focus more on properties, but in other countries, they also may focus on equities and other reserves of money or wealth, right? So pension funds in Zimbabwe have a majority of its stake invested in property, 47% to be specific. And in comparison, if we look at South Africa invests only 3% of its pension fund capital in property. That's 15 times more than Zimbabwe. That's an interesting fact, and it is further evidence how property is the best bet to invest in Zimbabwe. And everyone does it, even on an individual level. If someone gets a lump sum of money right now, they're gonna buy a residential stand. So it's a Zimbabwean thing maybe because based on our past experiences, we've learned that, hey, property is the most reliable asset we can hold. Okay, so, right, let's jump into more specific more specific examples, right? In Zimbabwe, we have a little organization called NSSA. Yeah, you might have heard of it, right? So NSSA is the father of pension funds in Zimbabwe. And since they handle the pension funds of one of the biggest employers in the country, which is the government of Zimbabwe, NSSA is a big deal. Like, most people in this country are employed by the government of Zimbabwe. The government of Zimbabwe employs a lot of people, and NSSA handles the pension of all these people, but not just on a government level. It also handles the pension on private level. So pension funds aren't awarded to anyone and everyone, right? There are conditions to be obligated in terms of the statutory instrument 393 of 1993 to be a member of the pension and other benefit scheme. So not everyone can qualify, it's specific. So here are the conditions. You have to be a working Zimbabwean who has attained the age of 16 years and is under the age of 65. So 16 to 65, right, are the conditions. And you have to be in permanent, seasonal, contract or temporary employment, right? So domestic employees and those in informal sector are currently not covered by the scheme that is offered, the pension scheme that is offered by NSSA. So hey, that's a blow. I was talking to someone earlier today, and the person is a vendor, and they were telling me that one of the advantages of being formally employed is benefits such as this. So it's something of concern to people who are informally employed. So the NSSA pension and other benefits scheme, also known as POBS scheme, is financed from contributions by both the employers and the employees. So if the employers, so both the employer and employee are obligated to pay NSSA a certain percent, and the following are the rates. So 4.5% from the employee. So each and every dollar you're earning, right, if it's a salary, 4.5% is being taken for your pension fund. And this happens on an individual level as the employee, and also as a collective, on a collective level as the employer, right? So a total of 9% is to be paid to the nearest NSSA office before the first of each month. So this is how it works: 9% every month from the employer and the employee, 4.5 from both groups, right? So this is a lot of money. So let's crunch up some numbers, right? Hypothetically, right, if people earn an average of $500 per month, right, that means that NSSA is getting an average of $22.50 every month from each person, right? $22 each month from each person, and that's $270 each year from each person, right? So if only 5% of the Zimbabwe population is formally employed, because not everyone has a formal job, right? In a population of, let's say, 15 million, that means that 750,000 people are paying NSSA an average of $270 each and every year, meaning that NSSA makes $202.5 million a year, hypothetically, from the example that we just used. And this is only from employees. We haven't even counted from the employers. So they invest this $202 million in something and give you back your money after 40 years as a package. And guess what? You know, membership to the scheme is compulsory. It's compulsory regardless of whether the employee is covered by the private scheme or the public sector. As long as you're Zimbabwean and as long as you're working formally, you have to pay. You have to pay. So yeah, this covers all basically how pension funds work, and looking at NSSA more specifically. Hope that you learned something. Our sources were the NSSA website and an article on okay, an article by this gentleman called, yep,